Hi everyone, welcome to new video. Here is the second part for the question paper discussion. This is a question paper from Kerala PSC 2014 exam conducted for Welder Tradesman. And this is the second part. In the first part we have already discussed 40 questions. Today we will be starting from 41st question. What is the temperature range of oxyacetylene flame? The options are 3100 to 3300 degrees Celsius, 2600 to 2800 degrees Celsius, 3400 to 3600 degrees Celsius, 3600 to 3800 degrees Celsius. And the correct option is 3100 to 3300 degrees Celsius is the correct answer. When arc and molten metal deviate from regular path due to magnetic disturbance, it is called arc blow, blowhole, distortion and porosity. And if it is due to magnetic disturbance, we will be calling it as an arc blow. If it is due to magnetic disturbance, we will be calling it as an arc blow. For removing water vapor from acetylene gas, the material used is options: filter wool, steel wool, paper filters, fuming stone. Filter wool, steel wools cannot be used for removing water, and the option D, fuming stone, that is used for removing water. Which flux is suitable for welding brass by gas welding? For welding brass, and it is by gas welding. The flux used, options: allotectic flux, zinc oxide and potassium dichromate flux, borax flux, and none of these. That is for welding brass, and all of us are familiar with this, and it is we are using borax as the flux for welding brass. What is the purpose of copper coating on mild steel filler rods? Copper coating in mild steel filler rods. Options: to conduct heat transfer, to avoid rusting of the mild steel filler wire during the long storage, to increase the strength of joint, to give good appearance of the for giving appearance, and we cannot use that, and copper will not be giving any strength. It will be conduct heat if it is fully made of copper. To avoid rusting is the correct answer for giving a copper coating. The welding position of the weld is defined by the two parameters. Options: weld slope and weld angle and weld rotation, weld slope and weld cut, weld slope and weld rotation. And it is given by the weld slope and the weld rotation. We have 6 different positions for the welding, starting from 1G to 6G. The type of electrode used for welding aluminium by TIG welding. Options: pure tungsten, zirconate tungsten electrode, thoriated tungsten electrode, seriated tungsten electrode. This is a coating for zircon, thorium, cerium are the coating for tungsten. And for aluminium by TIG welding, we will be using zirconium coated tungsten electrode or zirconated tungsten electrode. What step will eliminate undercut defect in arc welding? This question again it is cancelled by the PSC. Use of buttering run, preheat the plate to be welded, decrease the speed of welding, increase the speed of welding. So this question is cancelled by PSC. Next question: in manual metal arc welding, the flux coating is given to deep penetration would contain. Options: cellulose, manganese, iron oxide, and calcium carbonate. In manual metal arc welding, flux coating is given to deep penetration, so it will contain cellulose. What is the melting temperature of copper? What is the melting temperature of copper? So we have already discussed the melting temperature of aluminium, which is 659 degrees Celsius, and here they have asked for copper, and it is comes around 1083 degrees Celsius is for copper. Oxygen is a fuel gas, supporter of combustion, and inert gas in none of this. Oxygen cannot be used as a fuel gas. It will not support combustion. It will support combustion. It will not be used as an inert gas. So the option B will be the correct answer. It is a supporter of combustion. Dash flame is used in oxyacetylene gas welding of brass. Flame for brass. Options: neutral, carburizing, and oxidation. None of this. And for brass, we'll be using oxidizing flame. For brass, we'll be using oxidizing flame. The purpose of using jigs and fixtures of clamps for holding work in welding to prevent. Jigs and fixtures are holding device for holding weld work in welding to prevent. Options 53. Arc blow, distortion, oxidation, and undercut. To avoid distortion during the welding operation, the job should not distort. To avoid that, we will be using jigs and fixtures. Dash gas is generated by reaction of water and calcium carbates. The water and calcium carbate. It's a very simple question. So we'll be using this for generation of acetylene for the gas welding operation. Which one of the following metal has the highest thermal conductivity? Options: zinc, aluminium, mild steel, and copper. Which got the highest thermal conductivity? So all of us know that the copper got the highest thermal conductivity among these. Some metal particles which are thrown out of the arc during welding along the weld is called. So during a welding operation, you can see just around the weld bead, you can some particles are there, and these particles are called the spatters. Porosity is an air inclusion in the weld. Or weld overlap means it's overlapping the we know that is called weld overlap. Undercut means it is containing some amount of metal. The spatters means some thrown out, that is called spatters. Name the non-destructive test in which the sound waves of the high frequency are used. Name the non-destructive test in which sound waves of high frequency. So sound waves are used in ultrasonic test. We'll be using a probe to detect the defect in the specimen or the weld. If the defect is there, it will give another type of signal. The angle of filler rod to work rightward welding techniques. So already we have discussed leftward welding techniques, and they have asked for the rightward welding technique also. So it's a very important area, like the angle for rightward and leftward welding technique. The options are 50 to 60, 20 to 30, 40 to 50, and 30 to 40 degree. And the correct option is 30 to 40 degrees. For rightward, it is 30 to 40 degree. The root opening on square butt welding is given. The root opening on square butt welding is given to obtain penetration, to control the distortion, to keep the joint alignment, to maintain the condenser. And the correct option is to obtain a penetration. We are providing root gap to obtain a proper penetration. There are two methods by which the flex coating is applied on electrode core wire. Which are they? Two methods of flex coating. Dipping is a very common method. Dipping and sucking, dipping and extrusion, sucking and blowing and extrusion. So in option C and D we can avoid. Dipping is very common, and dipping and extrusion we are using for coating electrodes. In acetylene cylinder, the acetylene is dissolved in acetylene cylinder, the acetylene is dissolved in. It's a very common question. This question is repeated in many examinations. It is dissolved in acetone. It is dissolved in acetone. Depression formed at the end of the weld bead is called. Depression formed at the end of the weld bead is called. Depression formed at the end of the weld bead is called? Option blowhole. It is not a depression. Crater. Crater is called the depression at the end of the weld base. Spatters we already discussed. It is some metal particles thrown from the weld. Just a reinforcement. Reinforcement is if it is a weld joint, it will be reinforcing the weld joint by providing some extra amount of metal. This is called a reinforcement. Which of the following is a radiographic test? Radiographic test means just like we are taking X-ray of our bones. So ultrasonic test, magnetic particle test, fatigue test we can avoid. X-ray test is the radiographic test. Oxyacetylene flame cutting process. Oxyacetylene flame cutting process is physical, chemical, thermal, and none of these. Oxyacetylene flame cutting process, it is a chemical process. Oxyacetylene flame cutting process, it is a chemical process. For complete combustion, 1 volume of acetylene requires how much amount of oxygen? 1 volume of acetylene requires how much amount of oxygen for complete combustion? Options 1.5, 2.5, 3.5 and 4.5. The correct option is 1 volume of acetylene requires 2.5 volume of oxygen. The purpose of central hole at the tip of the cutting blow pipe. The purpose of central hole at the tip of the cutting blow pipe. Supply oxygen for preheating, supply acetylene for preheating, supply oxygen for cutting, supply acetylene for cutting. Cutting is done with the help of oxygen and the central hole is provided for cutting. So the option C, supply oxygen for cutting, is the correct answer. On which of the following welding process the arc is not visible to the welder? The arc will be suppressed or arc is there but is not visible. Options MIG welding, it is arc is visible. Gas welding, so we can see that gas welding there is no arc actually. So means submerged arc welding. From the name itself we can tell that submerged arc welding, the arc is submerged, so it is a shielded metal arc welding. The arc is shielded with a shielding gas, so it is visible but it is shielded only. Columbium is added to the electrode used for welding stainless steel to prevent. Columbium added to weld electrode for welding stainless steel to prevent. Options distortion, excess penetration, spatter and weld decay. The correct answer is weld decay. We will be adding columbium to electrodes for welding stainless steel to prevent weld decay. The raw materials of calcium carbide and limestone. The raw material for calcium carbide and limestone. Option quicklime, coke, calcium oxide and carbon monoxide. It's a very simple question. Coke will be used as the raw material for manufacturing calcium carbide and limestone and coke. We will be heating limestone and coke for getting calcium carbide. The limestone is heated to very high temperatures so that calcium carbide will be developed. Depth of fusion from the surface of the weld metal is known as. Depth of fusion from the surface of the weld metal is known as. Options penetration, distortion, fusion zone and the reinforcement. Reinforcement we have already discussed. Distortion also we have already discussed. The correct option will be, maybe it is treated as a fusion zone, but the question is cancelled by the PSC. The stainless steel contains as alloying element of. The stainless steel contains as alloying element of stainless steel. So it's a very simple question. We will be using chromium and nickel as the alloying element. In stainless steel, we will be using chromium and nickel as a alloying element. In TIG welding, the shielding gas is used is argon, carbon dioxide, oxygen and hydrogen. So very simple question. We will be using argon as the shielding gas for the tungsten inert gas welding. In oxyacetylene process, supply of acetylene generator is called. In oxyacetylene process, supply of acetylene generator is called high pressure system, medium pressure system, low pressure system and none of these. It's again, this question is made a lot of confusion, and this also got cancelled by the PSC. Flux is not required for the gas welding off. Flux is not required for the gas welding off. Copper, brass, mild steel and aluminium. For a mild steel, flux is not required for gas welding. For mild steel, we will not be using any flux for gas welding. Which two gases from the atmosphere must be prevented from entering the weld metal? Which two gases from the atmosphere must be prevented from entering the weld metal? Options: oxygen and nitrogen, nitrogen and argon, oxygen and argon, argon and helium. So we can see argon in the three option, so which will be used as an inert gas in welding operation. So we can avoid these three options, and we can choose oxygen and nitrogen will be prevented from entering the molten welds. It will oxidize the molten metal. The duty cycle of welding machine. The duty cycle of welding machine. It's a very common question. It's a duty cycle. Maybe they have intended to ask the per efficiency, but so this question made a lot of confusion. So this is also cancelled by the PSC. Distance between the toe and the roof of the weld is called. It's a toe and the root of the weld is called root run, leg length, arc length, reinforcement. The distance between toe and the root of the weld is called. It is called the leg length. It is called the leg length. Lack of penetration in arc welding is due to high current, low current, short arc length, too low welding speed. Lack of penetration from the options itself, if the current is low, the amount of heating will be low, so the penetration will be low. The heat produced will be H is equal to I squared RT. So if the current is low, the heat amount will be reduced by some amount, so that the penetration will be lesser. What is the chemical symbol of acetylene? Chemical symbol of acetylene is very simple one. It's a C2H2. It is a chemical symbol of acetylene. Here is our last question. Which type of energy is used in laser beam welding? Which type of energy is laser beam welding? Laser means light amplified simulated emission of radiation. Light amplified simulated emission of radiation. From the name itself, we can tell that we will be using light energy for the laser beam welding. So this is the 80 question from the 2014 Welder Tradesman examination. So some questions are very simple and easy to answer, but some of them maybe we can catch a 10 question, which is our rank making questions. So concentrate on that question, you can score mark for the coming examination. So thank you all for watching the video. We will be back with another video on the next day.